this is Pastor Tom welcoming you to another study in the Word. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe if you like it. Punch those buttons. It's important to get this around. Okay, we're going through the system, what I call the Luciferian Brotherhood, how it all works. And you're going to find out all these occult organizations are connected. It's not, this is all done with purpose, very, very much so. And I remember years ago, I had a vision, and in the vision, I saw a woman that was like the woman in the Wizard of Oz, the witch, ugly looking thing, and she was spinning around and like that with a broom, and she would go like this, and this magic stuff or this energy would come out of the broom and hit these demons, and they fly out, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. And I realized that really this was she represent in the vision the body, if we could use that term, of the occult people. And even though many of them were not really knowledgeable people, they were still in the body. You could actually say it this way, the world system too. I mean, if you really think about it, the church is made up of different types of churches. You got real liberal denominationals now. You've got, Episcopalian, and you got the old line churches, and you got all this kind of stuff all the way up to, Spirit-filled, born-again, Spirit-filled, radical, powerful churches, and all points in between. But they're still, if they're born again, they're part of the body of Christ. Well, if you're in the system, see, and you're seeking that system, the Luciferian system, it doesn't really make any difference if you have all the knowledge, Like there's a lot of difference in the body of Christ in knowledge. You take the Spirit-filled, Word of Faith type of people, strong people, we have a lot more knowledge than they do in the Baptist church. I'm just being honest. And you'll find that out as you go up. But they're still in the family, the Baptists that's born again. You see what I'm saying, though? It's in the system, a Luciferian system is the same way. They may be a witch, just what they consider Wicca or white witchcraft, and they are, but they're in that system. They're part of that system, whether they know it or whether they don't know it. And so that's not good, see. So anyway, I started off by having you draw a pyramid. I want you to do that again. I want you to draw a pyramid that's up like this, point it up, because that's called holy contracts. Okay, that you'll see that wherever you go at some of these churches and stuff we'll talk about. And then one from facing down will be an unholy contract. Put them together, and then you got like the flag of Israel. I can't remember what they call that symbol, maybe the hexagram or whatever it is. Anyway, you'll find out that in these all this occult stuff, these symbols are very important. They all mean something, and they mean deep layers of something. And that's another thing that's difficult to learn about is one person can look at that and know some things, but another person who's higher up in that occult language would know deeper things, and somebody who's even higher up than them would know other things. It's just kind of layers of learning and understanding. It's very difficult to study. I mean, I'm studying all this, and I go, man, that's really deep stuff. But you can get to know what they're doing, where they're at, who's there, what kind of rituals they're going to have, when they're going to have them, all that kind of stuff, which is very interesting. Because if you know, you know. And when you start to know, you know what I mean. Yeah, it's not fun sometimes to know. But anyway, you have the Luciferian Brotherhood. I'll just call it that. Now, number one, of course, you got Lucifer, Satan. You got your demonic generals that are above all of this. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. We know that. Different levels of devils, right? Secondarily, believe it or not, who's in charge of all this are 5 mothers of darkness. They call them mothers of darkness. And you have one who is the queen mother of darkness that sits over the whole thing. The most powerful occultist in the planet, the most powerful and most authoritarian person in this planet, in the Luciferian system, is a woman. And we need to pray for these people. Well, what's their names? Nobody knows. Nobody knows their faces. They also do things in the occult to cover up things, like they'll have brides of Satan, and these are terms we'll use, that play like they're the mothers of darkness, but they're not really. that type of thing to throw people off. But the occult world's really interesting because they're right there in front of you, but a lot of times you don't see it. It's hidden in plain sight. It's very interesting. And so if you learn how to decode all that, and so one guy's looking at a target sign and sees, oh, it's target is like the circle with the it's a target like that you shoot at, but that's not what it is to the system. What it is to the system is the circle. Well, let's give it to you. The circle represents the woman's part, and the point in the middle is the male point coming together. So when you see that somewhere, you would know that they were one of the covenants they have is it was sex magic. And we'll get it. I don't want to get too heavy with it, but that's just one thing. The circle is very important. That's just the very first symbol you learn in the occult world is the circle. Yeah. And so it means different things in different situations. So you got the Queen Mother of Darkness at the top. She answers to Lucifer alone. To Lucifer alone. I don't even think she answers to these other spirits. Lucifer. Maybe she does. I don't know. But then you got the 4 others. And they're in charge of different areas and quadrants and regions. Very interesting. All over the planet. So nothing happens in the occult world that the Queen Mother of Darkness doesn't know. So this has to be a very, very special type of person. Okay? So each mother is assigned to different quadrants or parts of the system to oversee it. Internationally, regionally, in the United States, Europe, and so on. So she knows and sees everything, reports to Lucifer, gets Lucifer what he wants to do, gets down to her, and then down the system. Each Mother of Darkness is that there has somebody that they're training to take over for them. So I know of somebody who was being trained to be the Queen Mother of Darkness, and I listened to her a lot, and I've learned a lot from her. She's born again, Spirit-filled Christian now. Jessie Sabatis, and Jessie is probably the most knowledgeable about the occult anybody I've ever seen. She's just like an encyclopedia of this stuff. But she was being trained to take over the Queen Mother of Darkness spot. And her person that was training her was the Queen Mother of Darkness at the time. And then she was going to take over when the time came, and then so every one of these Queen Mothers is like that. They're waiting in line, and sometimes they even fight over the spot. It's very interesting. We'll get into all that, but it's something that they do in the system. Now, I want to say this right off because this will help a little bit. There are people in the system that are there because they are bloodline people that have been groomed since birth to be in the system. There are other people in the system that were not born in a bloodline that is in the system. They came other ways, all right? I will call it the elitists, the bloodlines. You got a whole bunch of these people, and we'll talk about them as we go. And by the way, we will be naming names sometimes, and it'll shock you. But as you go down through this, you understand that their families, this runs in their families. We have generational, as an example, generational Satanists. It's the highest orders in the Satanic Brotherhood. You have generational people, generational Illuminati people. The same way with the Mormons, same way with the Kabbalists, the same way with the Jesuit Catholic Church. And so then you have other people that in life's past somehow join up or get in other ways. And we'll go over all that. But like Jessie, her family, her I think it was her grandmother or whatever was the Queen Mother. And so she was being groomed because she's so brilliant. And in the occult world, what they look for is they look for spiritual giftedness. I know that sounds funny, but their spiritual giftedness is things like psychic power and blah, blah, blah. And they look for intelligence, and they look for all this stuff. And she is brilliant, you can tell, just absolutely brilliant. She's got a mind like a steel trap. She can remember things way back. And I always remember Brother Hagin when he was preaching. He'd be preaching along, and then he said in 1942 I was at 5625 whatever it was the address in Kinney, Kentucky or whatever it is. It was a Thursday, and he had this mind that could remember all the details. She's like that, and so it's interesting that they chose her. You can see why, because you have to be really intelligent to be able to do what they wanted her to do. But all these mothers of darkness, they have somebody they're grooming to take over. And there has been mothers of darkness like Jesse that have left. Each story will be different when that happens. But so that's interesting. But anyway, I don't want to get into all that right now because we need to be talking about other things. So we have four queens that are the four queens that are like mothers, and one's like a crone. So you got in the Catholic Church you would have Virgin Mary, you've got the maiden, and then you got the crone, or the Catholic Church sometimes that mirrors what's really going on. The Catholics are clueless. People who are in the Catholic Church, they don't understand what's going on with all the symbolism. They don't even know. And people that are Mormons are the same way. And sometimes Masons at the lower level, they're not evil people. They're just like in a club, they think, or something. But as you progress through all of this, you gain more and more knowledge and illumination somewhere down the road. I remember listening to one guy that I love listening to, Dr. William Schmoglin. His books are really great. And his YouTube page, I like to listen to him because, he was way up. He was actually a vampire, a Satanist, and all this stuff. Really interesting. But he talked about that. You cannot go to certain levels. He was a witch. He was a Wiccan, a witch. They established witchcraft cults all over the Midwest, in Wisconsin, Iowa, so on. And he says that you get up to a certain level, and to go further, you have to go do something else. Another form of the occults, like he became a Mormon. It was really interesting because he said they told him in the system that he was in, if you really want to be a high-ranking person in the system or in Satanism or whatever he was pursuing, you've got to become a Catholic priest. I know that sounds funny to you, but I mean to a lot of people, because there is a lot of satanic power and energy in the Catholic Church. If you walk into the Catholic Church, people do not know this, or a Mormon church. If you walk in the doors, there's something there. It's almost like a false peace, but it's just energy in the building, because you have all these icons, all these doors, all these things that can be opened, ritual sites, and all this kind of stuff, and you don't even know it. They call it good, but it's not good. It can be evil. It's like when Christianity came over here, collided with when the people came over who were involved in voodoo, and so what they did is they took the Catholic icons, and it really behind the scenes it was voodoo gods. This has happened many times. So sometimes something that means something to one person or one occult world group will mean another to another, and so that's what we'll be seeing, a lot of that. So it's really interesting. So then after you got this the mothers of darkness, the next one would be the council, like a board of directors that direct everything. Okay. These are they're either regional or overseas, but there's 300 or so seats in this. Now they that varies, and they rotate kind of into this, the people that are high up in the system, and it's got different names. People use the Druidic Council, the Satanic Council, the Global Alliance, the Universal Alliance, the United Nations. So the council is 300 seats. Now, the person that's in charge of the council, and you'll see this word a lot. Actually, this word is very prevalent up here in our area of Green Bay, and that is the word phoenix. Now, the legendary bird that, comes back from the dead or whatever it is. So, the guy who runs that, the 300, oversees that, is called the Phoenix. Now, up to 2021, I believe it was, the Phoenix of the 300 was a guy that you will recognize. His name is George Soros. He was over, up to that point, what we would call in the system the Babylonian system, which was tied to the Catholic Church, the Holy See. They were kind of the head of that whole thing, the Jesuits and all this. And but here recently in 2021, the one who took over the seat from George Soros is Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama, his job is to usher in the Leviathan system, is what they're trying to do right now, which is bring in the Antichrist. Okay, so you need to know that. The Leviathan system is hooked up. Whenever you hear the word Leviathan, it's hooked up to. Okay, and so we'll talk more about that as we go. So that's how that goes down to that. And you got these people there, and then even the United Nations, the 300 seat, the Phoenix. Okay, now this job is to usher in that Babylon system. Recently, it's changed to the Leviathan system. So there's a change right now from the Babylon system to the Leviathan system, and some of the symbology is changing. So you got to stay up on top of it. But the Babylon system is normally has to do with the color blue, because it was seen by the Holy See, which is the Catholic system, old system. Now it's overseen by the color red, which is connected to the Jerusalem system or the Sanhedrin, all right, and spiritual contacts like that, which would be more, the Sanhedrin would be a high up organization. The Melchizedek system, in that, we'll talk about that as we go. The Kabbalah system, we'll talk about it as we go. So, when I say it's connected to Israel, something like that, I'm not at all saying all Israel is involved in this. Yeah, I'm just saying some are at the top. Okay, it's the same way with the Muslims. It's the same way. Please understand that most people don't know very little about this, but I'm giving it to you slowly so you can begin to build on it and see it now. So you have a sort of side position off of that. That's awful, an office that they have off the side position, sort of, run by a lady named Somerset Baniloff. Somerset Baniloff. I think I said that right. And of course, that has different members, and within that, there's a council of 9. Okay, and you might have heard this. That council of 9, they call them circles. The council of 9 is a satanic cult called the Ninth Circle. Now, you may have heard about the Ninth Circle, and many people, when they talk about the Ninth Circle, are giving you some faulty information saying that's the highest group. But it's not. I just gave you the highest group. They're quite a ways down, but they're still very high up in that system. And this lady that I talk about, Somerset Baniloff, quite a character. Look her up. Okay, she's still alive today, still functioning out there. She's a cousin of Queen Elizabeth. In that, you got the Council of 5, the Council of 7, the Council of 9. They're all connected. They're also connected, which was very unusual to me. I don't understand why, but connected very, very much to the Audubon Society. I'm going to have to look into that, which is birds, I think, the Audubon Society. So you also, within that, you have the Council of 13, 11, and 21. And that all, is something that they have in these different little groups, circle groups. So they watch over these things. And the purpose of these people, Somerset, the ones that are under her, is to settle disputes in the system so that they can come back into agreement with what to do. Because you've got all of these different people from different backgrounds and different occult affiliations and everything, and there's a lot of disagreement. There's a lot of fighting going on. You can imagine this is Satan's kingdom. They're not going to be like real nice to each other. Some of them hate each other. Some of them try to kill each other. Some of them have psychic wars and all this kind of stuff, which we'll talk about later. It's like the church. The church doesn't always get along, do we? See? So anyway, it's interesting that that's it. Then right underneath all of those these guys, these council people or whatever it is what we would call the Grand High Priest or Priestess. That's Grand High Priests, Grand High Priestesses. Nationally, again, maybe they oversee something nationally or in the U.S. and they help overseas these areas. There was one lady that passed not too long ago that was over the system. I think it was the Eastern system, Eastern part of the United States. Her name was Gloria Vanderbilt, Biltmore. And there's a whole lot on, if you want to look that up, that's a rabbit hole by itself. But Gloria was a trainer of these people, and even sometimes the mothers of darkness and so on. She was a sad woman, very, very much into the occult, very evil. The whole thing's evil. And sure, one of her sons is the guy on CNN that was, I can't remember his name, but he grew up in the system. Now you're going to find out this as we go. Many of the people that have positions in the media, positions in movies, positions in music, positions in politics, positions like that, were literally groomed for that position. And that's it's a very sad thing, because some of them that came out of this when they were children, like I was talking about Jesse, there's a lot of them though, will tell you who they were there with, which is very interesting. Some of them that were there that I learned about was this Gloria Vanderbilt, who died recently. And then there's a lady, her name is Lori Cavett Kent, and she's still around. You can look her up. She's been a witch for years over there. Very powerful, very influential in the system. Goes on in the East. In the West, it was an actress named Joan Collins. I think she passed, if I remember right. Anyway, she used to be that. And then there was John Brennan, which I think it was during the Barack Obama deal, maybe even Biden, I'm not sure. But anyway, I think he passed. Maybe he's not dead, I don't know. But he was over that in that CIA director. And the CIA directors, the one we have now, I think is good, but you got to watch him. George W. Bush Sr., you know. We'll talk about all that as we go. But he was the head of the CIA in the East, and he was overseeing that whole thing. And then on the West Coast at that time, up till a few years ago, I can't remember when he passed, was a guy named Michael Aquino, Colonel Michael Aquino in the West. And so he was in charge of that. Now this guy's evil, flat evil. If you look up Michael Aquino, he worked with Anton LaVey for many years. They had some disputes. He split off, started this thing called the Temple of Set, which is an Egyptian thing. And then he, was a high-ranking psyops guy. He worked in the government, top secret in our government, and was in charge of psyops, or some of these things I can say, like MK Ultra, mind screwing people. I use that term. All right, and he was an expert at it, and actually was working in the Palisades. I remember this when I was a kid. He was down there. Oh, I don't know if I was a kid. I was not real old though. When they got down there, all of a sudden they had the scandal. They call it the Satanic Panic, which is a bunch of nonsense. There was Satanism going on all over the place. Anytime you see something like that, trying to dispute, put down, just right underneath their name, probably you're in the system. Okay, so you had it in the media, you had it in psychologists were saying it, and they were saying all these kids were lying, and people were putting into their minds all this stuff really wouldn't happen. Remember when the daycare center scandal down there, the McMahon daycare scandal, and they were saying there's tunnels underneath the thing and everything, and so. And then all these children had these stories of being taken down there. Well, some of the children identified this Michael Aquino guy was abusing them. And so they did all this, checked into it. You know, this is a thing that's so annoying. They check into it and they found all kinds, found out later, pornographic child videos and everything else in his house and all this stuff going on. And it just disappeared. It was never, I mean, they took him to, a trial or something, I remember, but it just all disappeared. See, this is what happens because he was high up in the government and he was evil. I know people that were, I'm going to use this term, brain screwed by him, as well as even way back, older ones, the guy who came from Germany, Mendele, Dr. Mengele, the guy who was doing the the camps over there and doing the experiments on the Jewish people and others. Horrible experience. Horrible. We'll talk about that. He came over to America with a bunch of the Nazis because the government brought him in to, quote unquote, help, build atomic bombs and stuff like that. But a lot of that was a front because they were actually, the government was checking into how to build a super soldier or a better soldier or mind control or what they can do with their minds. And, it ran the whole gamut of what we know today. Russians, spies, honey pots where they train the women to go out and be sex kittens and get information. All that stuff was created in the laboratory by taking people when they're little children and actually preparing them for that destiny, which we'll talk a lot of. You've heard the term MK Ultra, but it's far beyond that now. And they'll tell you, just like they did here in the Presidio and in all that this stuff never really happened. It was a lie, and the children were lying. Later on, there was a man who went and investigated it because they couldn't find the tunnels. They tried to find the tunnels, and they couldn't find the tunnels. And he went in there, and a guy gave him permission that owned it. They opened it up, and they found the tunnels. But you never really hear about that, do you? It's all covered up because the higher-ups in the organization got that thing all sewed up. And now this is all coming out, see? And so it's really interesting when you hear something like there's tunnels under the ground, believe it, because there is. When you hear something like there's cities actually built underground, there is. It's not something I believe, it's something I know, okay? When you hear a term like underneath some church or the Catholic Church, let's just say right now a Catholic church somewhere, there's a basement or there are tunnels underneath there, actually ritual chambers where they're having giving birth or people giving birth to babies for sacrifice. Believe that because it's true. It's hard to deal with, but it's true, and we'll get into all that as we go because that's what's happening right underneath our minds. Well, prove that. I don't have to prove it. There's thousands of people that testify to it. I can't prove that. I'm not. But when you listen to this person and that, and they don't even know each other all over the world with the same stories. Now, what I was saying is in this MK Ultra, they said it stopped in the 70s. That's a lie. It didn't stop, but it's way far advanced. MK Ultra is not even relevant anymore, probably. You got all this technology, you got the computers, you got all this stuff going on. So he was on that western side of that. And so all these people had these regions tied up, and they were all involved in, I guess you could say, their region and taking control over their region and working that region. Now, who's in there that's new? I don't know. There was a German guy, Michael Kokoff, that was in charge of some of this. And then, a lot of these guys are Germans. I hate to say that, but it's true. I'm not saying all German people are bad or they're all into this, but I have to say the ones that I've ministered to in deliverance, and sometimes in multiple MK Ultra, They also, you have what we call split personalities, dissociative identity order. That's real, and I'll talk about that as I go, because it was a very sad thing for me to learn. I always just thought it was demons, and I was wrong. Okay, now it is demons, always involves demons because of the terrible abuse, but it also is split into altars that took the abuse for these kids so they could get through it. So they have a part that took the abuse. It's a very interesting whole situation. And how many people are there like that out there, Pastor? Millions now. There's literally millions of people that have multiple personality issues, that have demon issues, and they're coming into our churches, and people don't know how to help them. So we'll help you with that as we go too. But anyway, I run out of time. I hope this is interesting to you. Maybe you're bored out of your mind right now, but for those that are interested, please share it, and hit that subscribe button. As we go through this, I'm going to try to go slow enough to where you can catch everything, because there's just so much. There's so much, and this will be an ongoing thing. There's a lot of information I will provide for you. You say, well, I want proof. Well, you start digging. Just dig by yourself. There's books you can read on this. I tell you what, I'm a reader. I read everything I can find on these things, and you'll find out that there's a whole lot more going on than you thought. But I love you very much. Remember this: feed your faith, starve your doubts to death. Take some time now and go read your Bible and fellowship with the Lord. You don't need to just focus on this stuff, and it can be pretty nasty. We love you. Until next time, God bless you.